I'd like to thank Sinn Fein for bringing forward this motion this evening, which we fully support. I think it sends an important message out from this Parliament that the last PMB of the 33rd Dáil, which indeed was a motion from the Social Democrats, was on this issue, and the first PMB of the 34th Dáil also reflects how important the issue of the genocide in Gaza is to the Irish people and indeed to the Irish Parliament. In that last debate on the PMB of the 33rd Dáil, my colleague, who was outgoing TD at the time, Brendan Howlin, in commending the work of Senator Francis Black, also warned, as I suppose we all did, of the presidency of Donald Trump and the moral and economic pressure that would be placed on Ireland by his presidency to bow to the Israeli demands. And we are concerned that the first bit of pressure that this government have bowed to will be the watering down of the Occupied Territories Bill. But I think Deputy Howlin or anybody else could not have foreseen the press conference that took place yesterday with President Donald Trump, in which he stated that the US would take over Gaza, would clear Gaza of its people and of its buildings, and would redevelop it. And this wasn't some contribution made in some pre-election rally in some part of the United States. This was a White House briefing, a White House press conference, and stood shoulder to shoulder with him was the Prime Minister of Israel, who commended this American policy. It is absolutely beyond absurd that these words and policies are coming out of the Oval Office, notwithstanding the historical support America has had for the Israeli project. But what has been said yesterday brings it to a whole new level of abhorrence. And this is why Ireland, small Ireland, needs to act as we have done in the past. Tánaiste, when we talk about genocide, the phrase is often used, never again. And we know the origins of that phrase in terms of the 20th century. But instead of never again, what we seem to have is again and again, because the West will continually turn a blind eye to genocide and war crimes if they deem it in their economic or political interests. We cannot allow this country to follow that. We in the Labour Party, like many in this country and like the Irish people, are unequivocal in our unwavering solidarity with the people of Palestine. Their struggle for self-determination, for basic human rights, and for now, for food, for water, for electricity, for heat, for safety, for freedom of movement, should demand the commitment of every person in the world with a shred of decency. The consistent bombardment that they have seen from Israel since those awful attacks on October 7th have been massively disproportionate and something the likes of which we have never seen. And this was at a time when most independent eyes have been denied access to the horror on the Gaza Strip. We need to pay tribute to the work of journalists who risked their lives to ensure that the world could see the truth for what it was, to those 137 journalists and media workers who lost their lives in Gaza. Since the Committee to Protect Journalists, CPG, began to collect data to date, it has been the deadliest spot for journalists to work. Today, we have a shaky ceasefire, but a ceasefire that has come with 61,800 people having died in the last 15 months. We should always welcome an end to violence and have a duty to help facilitate a lasting peace in the region. But when we see press conferences like we did in the United States yesterday, it feels that ceasefire is on shaky ground. This violence is generational. The stories that the world have seen since the 7th of October of families devastated from indiscriminate bombings, from assassinations, are absolutely heartbreaking. And the failure of the international community to stand up and act is a damning indictment of us all. For the United States, the self-identifying supposed beacon of freedom and justice, its continued indifference to the plight of the Palestinian people is the utmost failure. It's a moral stain on the country that, as I say, identifies as the leader of the Western world. Well, it's not the leader of Ireland, Irish foreign policy and Ireland's position on Palestine and the Palestinian people. Donald Trump is a fundamental danger to the very existence of Palestine and its people. We now know, moving forward, what the US policy is going to be: to forcibly displace 2 million Palestinian people from Gaza so that the US can de facto own it and indeed redevelop it. This is shocking that we could be contemplating another Nakba. The truth is that this world has become more fractured and a more unstable place over the last number of years. Our country's reliance on foreign direct investment from the United States is something that cannot lead our foreign policy in its entirety. And this is the test that this government now has. We cannot allow global tech bros to dictate our values when it comes to Palestine. And it greatly concerns me that there have been indications that this government is willing to do just that. The reports that have indicated that the Occupied Territories Bill will be line for line reworded and indeed watered down for reasons that would damage Ireland's corporate and diplomatic relations with the US is something that we cannot tolerate. We are at a point now. This is our Duns workers' moment. It is something that we must, as a country together, step forward in unison, led by this government and what they said leading into the last general election. I shared a media engagement with Senator Black just before the election when the outgoing government stated that they would support this bill going through. Not that they would reword it line by line, but that they would support it. They are not following through on that. There could be no greater signal of solidarity to the Palestinian people for a country the size of Ireland if they would back the Occupied Territories Bill, because we are a small country. And I don't think it's unimportant what we have done this far in terms of recognising the Palestinian state. That is an important move. I'm not denying that. But this is the moment. This is the bill. This is what the Irish people want. They know what this bill is about. They want your government to support it and to deliver it. We in Labour we in Labour believe that our government should work within the EU as well. We have worked with some partner states, but we know that the likes of Germany, Holland and many other countries are standing firm. We in Labour knew when Ursula von der Leyen visited Israel in October 2023 after the events of October 7th and and her quote, "I know how Israel responds will show how it is a democracy." No democracy should respond to an act of terrorism and an act of violence the way Israel has responded since that day up to the ceasefire. If you are to be a democracy, if you are to fly the flag of democracy, you need to lead by example. That is not to allow yourself to become insecure, but it is not to show disproportionate venom, vengeance and indeed genocide. Israel remains outside more international agreements than any other state. They are, by any measure, a rogue state. And this is something that Ireland has called out for many, many years, and we must continue to do so. But we are at a point now where we need to step one step further and call the Israelis out. They are a huge military. They are an active military inspired by vengeance. They are a nuclear power. They make the Middle East more insecure, not more secure. And we in this country do have power. We have a historical record of punching above our weight, to use that oft-quoted phrase. We can do it by passing this bill and building on the work that we have done. And I think that this is an important moment for this new government, and I think it's one that, if they follow what this motion, what previous motions and what the opposition have been saying, and what Senator Black has been saying for 7 years, I think we could bring Irish foreign policy into a new, better and braver space.